I am here with Shelby the Church Dog, and we have a special guest today. We have Hunter Steinitz, who's with us, and Hunter is one of our candidates under care in preparation for ministry in the Pittsburgh Presbyterian. She's a member of Riverview. And so Hunter, one of the reasons that I asked you here is just to kind of follow up on last week's conversation. We talked a little bit about this, preparation for today. So last week we were talking about being the body of Christ. And I was talking about welcome. And I pulled back on it.
You did? It was interesting. Tell me why.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the reason that I pulled back on it was because, and I don't think I articulated it well, but I don't think that welcome is enough, or welcome is a strong enough idea for what the church needs to do and to be, because I think that welcome has some implications to it.
And I think you're right. I think when we talk about welcome, we need to think about who we assume is already there and who we think isn't there, and why we think they are or are not there. So I think when we talk about various groups of people from all different walks being welcome, what we mean is they're not usually here.
Yeah, right?
And I think what being the body of Christ means is that their presence is assumed rather than extraordinary. It's normal.
Yeah, right? That we all kind of make up that all of us together in all of our, and I don't even want to say diversity, right? Like in all of our plurality.
Mm-hmm. All of our image-bearingness.
Yeah, that's a good phrasing for it. Yeah, like we all make up what it means for us to be the body of Christ. And I think the reason I pulled back is because if I want to say, you are welcome here, Hunter, right? Like that implies that I have the authority to say, you are welcome.
Right.
As opposed to Christ who is at the table and we who are
guests at the table.
Guests and we who are Christ's body at the table, right? And so, like, I think the phrase that I used when we were talking before that I have been holding on to is, I don't think that you should have to explain that you exist, right?
And because when we say summer welcome, there's kind of that need to be like, but really, why are you here? Like,
yeah.
not in necessarily an intentionally like harsh way, but just in a like, because we assume who is and isn't present.
Yeah.
And so when someone is present, especially when they're new, there's kind of this, well, why are you here? How did you find your way here? And like, that's part of the journey, but like, that shouldn't be a prerequisite to sit at the table.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. Because people's stories matter a lot, right? Like, and we do want to create space for people to share their stories, but
we want to let them do it on their time.
Right, like if I have a guest over to the house, the first thing I ask isn't, tell me your whole life story, like it's usually like, are you thirsty?
Yeah.
And sometimes you get the whole life story.
Right.
And
sometimes, people need to feel comfortable and safe first. And that's kind of the joy of this table, is when we come to it, we find safety. When we come to it, we are nourished by the gifts we find there.
Yeah.
And at that table, in that moment of taking bread together, taking cup together, we are both welcoming and being welcomed by He who set the table.
Yeah.
And being nourished by the gifts we find there.
Yeah, that's really good. So let me ask you, in a concise way, because I know you have a lot of interesting thoughts on this topic, which is, you know, the big reason that I asked you here to be here, in a concise way that would make perfect sense to Shelby, what do you think it means for us to be the body?
I think for us to be the body is for us to let every dog, in whatever shape and form they exist in, to run around and play fetch with the rest of us in whatever way they want and are able.
Well, I think Shelby would like that explanation for sure. She's here for it.
Ha. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me out to chat a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for being here and being part of this conversation. Because I think it's a really valuable one, and I know that that it's one that you care an awful lot deeply about.
And that being at the table is a reflection of our image-bearingness.
Yeah.
And yeah, so embrace that. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because it's colorful on purpose.
Yeah. Well, that's really awesome. Well, thank you very much, Hunter. I think that probably, last week we went on for a long time. I say we.
So hopefully I think we're shorter.
Yeah, I think this is a much more concise conversation. But thank you, and we'll have you back for more conversation.
Absolutely.